Truckers of Reddit, what's the craziest, scariest, or most bizarre thing you have experienced on the road or at a truck stop? My dad has been a truck driver my whole life. The one that sticks out the most to me is when he saw someone in his company accidentally kill a lady. Or rather, the lady was killed by the guy's truck. There was a notoriously bad intersection outside of Sioux City, Iowa. And this woman just blew through it illegally, and out in front of my dad's co-worker's loaded semi, with my dad behind him. A lot of people don't realize that trucks can't slow down like a car, they have to gear down because of how heavy they are. She was killed instantly and her family later tried to sue the company my dad worked for, which went nowhere. Also, when I was a kid, he was in a grain elevator explosion. My dad's truck was like the 10th in line, and the first couple of trucks were basically vaporized. It was a pretty scary day because we saw about it on the news before he was able to get a hold of us. He had a number of post-traumatic incidents after that, unsurprisingly, but didn't realize what they were until I told him. He once had a panic attack because he saw a bunch of kids running away at the same moment a train whistle blew loudly. Edit: for those of you wondering, the first incident took place on Highway 75 outside Dakota City, Nebraska. The second one was probably in Nebraska or Iowa, not sure where. Both incidents happened when I was a small child, in the early to mid-90s, so unfortunately I don't have a lot of details beyond what I've written here, and my dad is an alcoholic so his memory isn't what it used to be, and he doesn't like to talk about stuff like this, unsurprisingly. Information about why grain elevators explode, go to this link, just Google it for duck's sake. A grain elevator is a large private or commercial building used for storing grain. Picture 1. Picture 2. Sounds like your dad needs to, if he hasn't yet, see a therapist or something. I hope he's doing better. Dad's a trucker. Anyway, one night, my dad was driving about a mile behind a guy he knew. He got on his radio and told the guy to be careful around the curve, it was really sharp and had a blind bend. He got back a "yeah, alright." When he got to the curve, the other guy's semi was in the ditch. He got to the straightaway, parked and rushed back to help the guy. When he got there the steering wheel was through the guy's chest. His organs were everywhere. TLDR, steering wheel went through a guy's chest during a crash. And that's why airbags are a thing. When the force involved is enough to shove a flat disc right through someone's chest, I don't think an airbag is going to help. As a man that has reached the ripe old age of 48, I can promise you I have seen some shit go down. This one totally takes the cake for me though. I was waiting out front of a truck stop, back in the mid-80s. Sitting on the park bench with a guy that had a big Rottweiler kinda dog on a leash with him. I tried to make small talk but he was quite a sourpuss. So we sat in silence for a few minutes, until the most unexpected thing I have ever seen, happened right before my very eyes. While we were sitting there, a big 18-wheeler pulls in without a trailer, bobtail. So he parks right up front like a normal car would. Inside the cab of the truck with the driver is a little monkey. The dance for the organ grinder kind. I think they are called rhesus monkeys perhaps. Well, the dog spots this little monkey, and proceeds to go apeshit over it, lunging at the end of his leash and barking at the top of his lungs. Generally making a real spectacle of himself to say the least. The driver is obviously upset, but not nearly as much as the monkey is. Actually, upset may be the wrong adjective to use for the monkey though. In retrospect, I think eagerly aggressive may be a more appropriate description for his disposition. He was pacing the dashboard back and forth, never taking his eyes off of this very aggravating dog. The driver opens his little triangle window that they don't make on cars anymore. The ones made for smokers back in the day. He yells out to this douchebag to call his dog off, because it is upsetting his monkey. The guy laughs and says, "No way, I told you he was a jerk, didn't I?" Says that his dog ain't bothering nobody. The dog hasn't shut up since he laid eyes on the monkey. I promise you he is bothering everybody for several blocks around. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The driver says that if he doesn't call his dog off, he's gonna let his monkey loose on that dog. Douchebag laughs and says that his dog would eat that monkey alive. Upon hearing this, the driver leans over and reaches into his glove box, I guess. Pulls out one of those tiny baseball bats like you use to get at Astro World or carnivals, and places it in the monkey's hand. The monkey obviously knows what's about to go down, because he is now trying to squeeze out of that little triangular window I mentioned earlier. This monkey has murder in his eyes if I have ever seen it. Driver hollers, "Last chance to save your dog's ass, man." In response, douchebag lets his dog off of the leash. Now we have a situation that has escalated to the point where we have a dog jumping up at the window, and a monkey screaming profanities right back at him. Well, the driver finally rolls down the regular window and out leaps all kinds of miniature primate hell. The dog never knew what hit him. Quick as a flash, this monkey is riding on the back of this dog's neck. His two back feet all wrapped up in his neck fur, with one hand hanging onto an ear. The other hand, as you may have guessed by now, is steadily and mercilessly raining down blows about this dog's head and face. I mean hard blows. You can hear them whop whop whop. Well, it only took a moment for the dog to realize he was in way over his head. He bolts yelping bloody murder as he runs away at full speed. I mean, this dog is running so fucking hard, he's throwing up tufts of grass and dirt as soon as he leaves pavement. The monkey's still riding him, and beating on him the whole time. Douchebag acts like he wants to fight now, but several people including myself stepped in to stop that nonsense. In a couple of minutes or so, the little monkey comes loping back with his little bat still in hand, and leaps up into the still open window of the truck, to await his master, who has gone on into the store. That wanker ran off to try to go find his dog, but I don't know if he ever did. My ride showed up and I had to go. Never again in this lifetime will I see something so totally crazy and unexpected like that. I am both fortunate and humble to have been so privileged to be present for such an event. TLDR: small monkey beats the shit out of large dog. I've seen fist fights at the fuel islands. Over people not pulling up, a big deal for us drivers. Had an RV crawl up alongside me once in Indiana. I have a habit of looking over when folks get up alongside me, to check and see if they are paying attention to the road, or their phone, or dozing off. Anyway, I glance over to see how old this couple in this RV may be. I was surprised to find the driver was maybe 30, tops. He looks over and smiles, and as sure as God's got sandals, the next second later a young naked woman is bent over the passenger side of the dash, and is being, acted upon by another young naked woman, with what appears to be a horse-shaped and sized dildo. Having seen this porno before, I clicked the cruise back a notch or two and let them go on. I was in deep South Texas coming out of Laredo. A Mexican truck, you can spot one easy when you know what to look for, starts coming up alongside me. He gets up next to me and no one is at the wheel. I see two straps on the wheel and can only assume the dude was attempting to drive from the sleeper, with a set of reins. I backed way off and let them get on up ahead of me. Saw them, 3 of these ass clowns in one truck, later at the border check on 35 in cuffs. I was running on Kansas Highway 96 out of Great Bend early one morning. Dawn was just peeking over the horizon back to the east. I rounded the curve out of town heading west, when I see Bambi and the gang crossing the road. Must have about 12 or more of them. I get up in the middle of the road and lay on the air horn. They stop crossing, but they all start running along on both sides of the road in the direction I'm going. I get back on the throttle, and just as I come up on the group, I see 2 of the deer on the north side, deciding they now want to join the group on the south side. Reflexes kicked in and I jumped into the oncoming lane to avoid them. I saw one's face clear as day as my fender and door went past him. He didn't hit the front corner of my trailer or my drives, luckily. However, he did hit his head on the side of my trailer. It must have been enough to daze him, as I watch him fall and get hit by my back hopper on the side. He went under my trailer tandems where he exploded. I was over gross weight, so he didn't stand a chance. I pulled over about a mile up the road, where it was wide enough to do so, 2-lane, and went to look over my trailer. I didn't see any marks on my trailer or hopper, nor anything much on the trailer tandems. The only thing left was a tuft of fur or 2 and blood dripping off both mud flap. R.I.P. retard Bambi. Not me, but my dad. He was a career long-haul driver. The thing he said was the worst he's ever seen was, he was driving along some interstate, when a minivan cut off the truck in front of him. It's been a few years since I heard the actual story, but I think it was like lost control, due to weather or highway hypnosis somewhere out west. Killed the entire family, blood and body parts scattered across the freeway. My dad had to physically restrain the other driver, because after the shock set in, he kept trying to run into traffic and kill himself. I don't know what I came into this thread looking for, but I think I found it. I expected there to be stories about midgets and furries fucking on truck stop toilets, not families being wiped out. Man, what the fuck? You expect that, like it's some regular trucker thing? I used to work with an ex-trucker, who once had a woman commit suicide, by jumping in front of his truck. He hasn't driven since, and now spends some time working with troubled or suicidal people. He was never quite the same after that happened. Edit. She had left a suicide note in her house. She had a history of depression. The family didn't want to sue or anything. They said they felt terrible for him that she chose to go that way, and didn't want to put him through anymore. They actually said they were glad she was no longer in pain. When I was a kid, there was a family of borderline mentally challenged people in my dad's small church group. I mean, the husband and wife were both very simple, as were their 2 kids. He was a diligent and careful truck driver though. That job was his life, and he was so proud of it, because he was a useful contribution to society, instead of sitting around on disability pay. I guess a woman committed suicide by driving across the interstate median, and getting to run head-on into his truck. I remember him talking to my father right after it happened. Everyone still thought it was an accident at that point, and he kept stressing how he had tried to avoid her, and it seemed like she was actively steering towards him. Lo and behold, a few weeks later it comes out that the woman was suicidal, and left a note saying something to the effect that she was leaving and never coming home. She had intentionally hit him. He was cleared of any disciplinary action from his company, but he never worked again. I heard that his family was evicted a few months later, and he was in a mental hospital because his fragile psyche was done for. This was 20 years or so ago, so I don't know what happened in the end. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. My dad was driving down some interstate, when it started raining really bad. He couldn't see more than a few feet in front of him, so he pulled off somewhere and waited for the rain to pass. While he's waiting, he sees a sports car drive by, followed not too far behind by a dump truck, going way too fast for a large truck in those conditions. Finally the rain passes, so he keeps going. A few miles up the road he comes upon a massive wreck. Apparently the dump truck had slammed right into the back of the sports car. There were 4 college kids in the car coming back from spring break. He goes to see if anyone's injured, and it's a bloodbath. The 2 guys in the back died instantly. The driver died on the way to hospital. The guy in the passenger seat survived, but he had to have both his legs amputated, because they had been crushed by the dashboard. The dump truck driver survived with pretty much no injuries. A state trooper shows up and sees the wreckage. He goes up to the truck driver and punches him in the face. None of the other drivers said anything. Back when men actually realized when a punch in the face was deserved, and didn't get all litigious over stupid shit. Nah man, that's kid stuff. Grown men hit hard, and there's a reason you can't just fist fight whenever you want. You can kill somebody by punching them in their head/chest, and you can rupture organs. Once you are past like 13 or 14, it's time to grow up and not throw hands, unless you have to defend your life.